let the democratic begin.
Yeah, I wanted to include Siri in our democracy.
Yes, she wants to be part of it. She keeps intruding herself on me when I try to dictate.
I noticed how I was wondering about how things happen in groups. And when you said you wanted, I didn't know the name you said. And I'm looking at everybody on the screen thinking, wait, where's that person that you just asked to keep your time? And this is part of how a group process is. Like I may say something and how somebody hears it influences how they're interacting within the group. So it just made me laugh. Yeah. So thank you, Siri, for your input.
Now someone should introduce, no, I don't want Siri part of our group. She's AI and yada, yada.
I was just thinking that too.
And she's awfully intrusive.
Sometimes we are all AI also.
Uh-huh.
Oh, can I speak without putting my hand up because it's a conversation?
Let's have that democratic way.
Yeah, I was just thinking that Greg Madison's style is a bit like Gentlin's style, which is a bit abstruse and difficult to get into, and a bit kind of hard, non-charismatic, and may relate to a desire to not have followers, not be a demagogue, not be a leader, a sort of eschewing of that, you know, the charisma of the person who wants to take over. And whilst I'm irritated by it, I also really like that it's not trying to seduce.
Mm-hmm.
You're irritated and you like that.
Yeah.
Not trying
That
to
coexist. I like the fact that there's a deliberate non-seductiveness about it.
I like that term, a deliberate non-seductiveness.
I think though in practice in the world, as opposed to a group of focusing people, the deliberate seductiveness tends to win out over the deliberate non-seductiveness. And then we have wars of deliberate seducers fighting to who's more seductive.
Yeah, I kind of take it as a subset of the focusing attitude in which it's a bottom-up method of not necessarily wanting to seduce or have a particular outcome. It's more descriptive, maybe.
I was seduced by Gene Genlin. Went to a workshop of his, not knowing who he was, and I was seduced for my whole life. Does that mean that that I found him seductive and Carol finds him deliberately and maybe he's both? And what do we mean by seductive? Also, I guess. What do we?
Well, for me, he's not trying to have power over. It's up to me. I can go and get him if I want, but he's not going to come and get me. I mean, I'm being very simplistic, but
yes,
and I, you know, that makes me paradoxically, I'm interested. I'm like, okay, because it's me. It gives me more selfhood in some way.
Gene had this particular problem himself in that at one point he wanted to know could he give up being the focusing guy and allow others to take over, and he found he couldn't do that, that either there'd be turf wars or lots of things would happen, and he realized you can't just give up your leadership and have it work.
I was so taken about what Lynn, you said earlier about, can we have authority can we speak with authority without having it over people?
Mm. Mhm.
I was like, yeah, that's what I want.
Ah, I see you growing that, Laura.
I find that very curious, like how to speak with authority without it being implied that there is some sort of power over, unless there's some sense of uncertainty in that, but that doesn't really, that seems paradoxical, which life is, but that's interesting.
Mm. That there could be some sense of uncertainty in the authority, folded into the authority. So the authority would be made up of many ingredients, including uncertainty.
Reminds me of how people talk about the United States idealistically, that it's not a monarchy, that it's not the rule of law, that it's not supposed to be about a person in authority. It's supposed to be about the Constitution, the code.
Then there's no predictability on how someone might act. It's a code, but there's no guarantee.
If there's not somebody in charge saying, this is right and this is, well, the code is saying this is right and this is wrong.
Yeah, just as there are always interpretations of the code, of the laws, etc., but it's kind of it's an attempt to have principles of how people want to live with each other, as opposed to, I'm going to tell you what to do because my family has been in charge for the last 500 years, or, something like that. Monarchy.
There would be a mix of the principles and the values and relying on the codes sometimes. For example, when you do bystander intervention, when the police are being oppressing others, you can hold up the Constitution, you can hold up your notebook, and there is that entity of the democratic Constitution right there alongside the actual people. Did I say that clearly enough? Yeah.
Katrina, I thought what you were saying was that it's accessible, theoretically anyway, if authority is based on a set of rules or principles, it's accessible to us all, not just, for instance, the police who was given authority in a particular situation. Is that right?
Accessible and also practical. So it can be brought to a good end, and not just bandied about in the parliament.
But just like all theories are wrong because they can't keep up with the implicit intricacy, all rules are wrong too. So you have to know when to abandon them.
We've always struggled in our community empowerment groups about how we govern ourselves, how we are together. Do we depend on rules, principles, structures, and what about the emergent felt sense? What about spontaneity and improvisation and balancing those two? And I went over a little bit to finish my sentence.